Come on the county, let's have a stroll. Come on the county, let's have some more. We're all behind you, so never fear. Come on the county, promotion's near. Run lads, shoot lads, give your heart and soul. Run lads, shoot lads, give us all a goal. Run lads, shoot lads.
After Newport County folded in 1989, a group of supporters, determined to bring senior football back to Newport, set about forming a new club. On a hot June night at the Leicester Institute, a public meeting was held to launch the club, a board of directors was nominated, and thus was born Newport AFC.
I'm joined in the studio this afternoon by the Newport chairman. David, do you think, is this really a feasible proposition? Will it really be a Newport side if you have to play in England?
Oh yes, we will represent Newport. We've got Newport support. We're all Newport people. Half of the steering committee are exiles from Newport in various places, including me. But we're a Newport team and we'll come back home as soon as they'll have us.
So how will it work in practice?
Well, no problem about playing. We've made an arrangement with a Gloucester club and we'll share their ground. What we'll have to do is bus our supporters, and every game will be an away game. In fact, some of the away games will be nearer than the home games. And we've got a problem. It's going to cost our supporters money. It's going to cut down our home gate income and our advertising income, obviously. So we've got to make up that from sponsorship, and we've got to make a success of our share issue, the selling of shares next Friday at the launch. And if people really think that we're doing a sensible thing, that we are playing at the highest level possible to represent our town, then they'll have to back us financially.
You're going into England to escape the jurisdiction, if that's the right word, of the Welsh FA. Is it purely a problem with them?
It was the last thing we wanted to do. After the extraordinary decision of the Football Association of Wales not to encourage us to play at the highest level possible, our intention was to appeal, and the hope that wiser councils would prevail at the full council meeting and with all the clubs. But then when the following day the Borough Council decided that they weren't after all able to offer us the Glebelands as a ground for Hellenic or even for Welsh League football, then we had no choice. Our priority was to play at the highest level possible. What the priorities of the other two august bodies were, you'll have to ask them. So we've now taken the only option possible, and we've registered as a Gloucester club, and we will play in Gloucester until such time as the Football Association of Wales is prepared to recognise us and the Borough Council is prepared to accommodate us.
Are you hoping, in fact, that those two things will happen soon?
Well, not this season. This season we must play in exile. We will be the Newport Exiles. And we hope that as we progress and prove ourselves, because that's what the Football Association of Wales told us to do. They said, we are an untried club, go and prove yourself. So that's precisely what we're going to do, and it's sad that we've got to do it over the border. And we hope that over time people will recognise that we're a viable proposition and that we will be welcomed back.
Journey up the M50 and M5 motorways and through the beautiful Cotswold village of Broadway, which supporters of Newport AFC will have to make for their home games, starting tomorrow. The new club have been forced into exile because the Welsh FA wouldn't support their application to join the Hellenic League, and because Newport Council couldn't find them a ground. The welcome from Morton, who play in the same league, couldn't have been warmer.
We feel sorry for any club that's without a ground, especially at this time. I mean, grounds are very expensive. Land's being sold all over the place, football pitches disappearing, and it's a tragedy really for football. You can't expect spectators to follow this way all the time, but I mean, the quicker they get a ground, the better for them.
They've even painted part of their railings black and amber to make the Newport players feel more at home. Back in Gwent, the last training session before the new club's first fixture was being held on a Parks pitch.
I'm very confident in the long term that we'll do well. It's a little bit unwise for me to say how well we'll do in the short term because it's a new venture for everyone concerned. We really don't know the strength of the league. We're stepping into the unknown a little bit. But in the long term, I'm sure that we'll get things right.
If we can start with success, then maybe certain people within the Newport vicinity will actually bring the exiles back home.
The Football League is a long way from Federated Homes League, the old Hellenic League as it used to be known. But after Newport County's sad demise, the steering committee of the new club are relieved just to be operating at all. But why are they playing in Gloucestershire?
On approaching Newport Borough Council and the Football Association of Wales, it became apparent that there was no ground for us in Wales. And as a result, we've had to go to the closest football association outside of Wales, which is the Gloucestershire FA. And as a result, we found a home at Somerton Town.
Newport's player-manager is John Relish, who featured in both legs against Carl's Ice Jena.
Well, this summer's been a long summer. A lot of people wondered whether we'd ever kick a ball. There was a lot talked about the new club. Well, we've actually started the season now. I'm very relieved. It's nice just to get down to playing football, not talk sort of politics, as it were, and actually kick the football about. And we're just looking for a good season, and it's just nice to be playing the game again.
Clearly, we are the most reluctant of exiles. Financially, it causes us great problems to have to travel 85 miles for our home games. In fact, most of our away games are more local than our home games.
It will take a minimum 4 years of unlimited success and progression through the various leagues for Newport AFC to challenge seriously for a Football League place again. But victory over Almondsbury Pixons, the winning goal from Steve Rowberry on his debut, was certainly a positive step in the right direction. The spirit of Newport football is very much alive.
Not only do they have a round trip of at least 190 miles for every match, but tonight they're not sure whether they're playing away at home or home away. But that's the sort of problem you face when your opponents are also your landlords, when your home pitch has moved counties and countries away from industrial Newport to the genteel Cotswolds, and the sort of town where even the football hooligans drive to the ground in Range Rovers.
Remember, lads, we're the away team tonight, OK?
Oh, we're very much away at our home ground.
So what difference does that make?
It makes a lot less work for us, actually. The Morton people, who have been so splendid to us, they'll do all the work tonight and we'll just watch the game. And we hope pick up the points.
The Newport players are paid for travelling. Not much, admittedly, with a budget of £600 a week, but they are paid. The supporters have to find the time and the money themselves. Still, they're a hardy lot. Given relegation, Jerry Sherman and liquidation, they have to be. What time do you get home tonight?
11, 12.
Then up for work again in the morning?
Oh, yes, yes. If my boss is watching.
Oh, yes! Yes!
It's worth every minute of it.
Why is it worth it?
Well, to watch our boys playing again. I mean, we want football in Newport. We can't get it. We can only play it.
Yes! Yes! Yes!
Newports repay the hospitality by handing out a 3-goal hiding. Well, no consideration, some people.
But Cardiff City only just made it at Ninian Park last night with a 1-0 result against non-leaguers Newport.
Postman Norman Parcell very nearly delivered the goods for Newport's part-timers before Cardiff had settled down last night. They gave a quick vote of thanks to goalkeeper Roger Hansbury. Newport's keeper, Tony Bird, also played a blinder for the Federated Homes League side, but he left the front door open when Gareth Abrahams knocked in the match winner. His first goal of the season, thanks to Bob Painter's attempted clearance rebounding off Chris Fry's back, and Bird not getting airborne. Rotten luck for Newport. But Bird, who runs an office cleaning firm in Cardiff, swept up everything after that. Chris Fry and Cohen Griffiths stunned by Bird's quick reactions. And Bird was flying high again in the second half. He stopped Maurice Scott scoring with his first touch of the ball after he'd come on as a substitute to play his first senior game for Cardiff. The young striker found Bird was now on song and quite unbeatable when another glorious scoring chance came his way. But despite Bird's efforts, Newport are out of the Welsh Cup. Nevertheless, they were never outclassed by Cardiff.
About 100 or so die-hard Newport fans greeted councillors today, arriving to consider the fate of Somerton Park. It was a noisy demonstration, but a good-humoured one. After all, these are the loyalists who have to trek up the motorway to darkest Gloucestershire for their home fixtures. That's because the nearest ground they could find was 75 miles away at Morton in Marsh. What's it like making that trip every week?
A bit tedious at times, yeah, but we all love the football, so we go.
The council, which owns Somerton Park, has been reluctant to let the exiles into the former home of once glorious county. Since the club went bust last year, there have been moves to sell off the site. But in the meantime, Newport AFC would still like to play there until a local home is found.
We've now presented a petition of 8,500 names Newport residents raised in just 5 days to indicate the support we've got.
We'll play Coronation Park anyway. As long as the council supports us, we'd like to be back in Newport.
The council says it will help to find a home for the exiles, but the days of soccer at Somerton Park are definitely over. And ironically enough, for the rising stars of the Federated Homes League, it's most likely to become a housing estate.
Somerton Park is a sad and lonely place these days. A sign outside the 78-years-old stadium confirms that the final whistle was blown on 68 years of Football League magic and mediocrity on May the 7th, 1988. But many still treasure memories of the club that died that day. Watch days now, they meet outside the old ground to travel to a new ground. It's support which goes back a long way.
Oh, about 40 years.
And what do you think about this long trip you have to make to Morton in Marsh for your home games?
Well, we don't mind because it's football and we enjoy our football. It's part of life to us now. I've been following them so long that I don't know what else I'd do on a Saturday.
What are your feelings about the council not giving you this ground over here?
Well, I think it's wicked that we should be paying rates for a piece of ground to have security guards on. And it's our rates. The council should do as the people of Newport want and not please themselves with our money.
And what are your feelings about, what's his name, Sherman these days?
Oh, that is a bad, dirty word. Don't mention his name.
What harm, in fact, was done by the Sherman incident and the long-running saga there?
Well, I think that brought Newport County to an end, and the faithful fans over the years decided that that was the end of the club, and we decided we had to start from the ground, and a new club had to be formed with the enthusiasm and support of the old county supporters, but with no connections with the old club. So we're back at the bottom. We're starting at the bottom. We're working our way up.
The tip's out now, see? Usual.
Outside the Civic Centre in Newport, more supporters get on board. Sometimes 2 or 3 busloads leave the town. Hundreds more will travel in their own cars, some from as far as London. It's a friendly, family atmosphere. They've all become united in showing their love and support for the new club that has risen from the ashes of the old Newport County. They take pride in following Newport AFC, the exiles, even though it means a 170-mile round trip to the Cotswolds, to Morton in Marsh, just to see the Black and Ambers play at home. In another part of Newport, manager John Relish loads his players onto another bus for the long trip up the motorway, along with Chairman David Hando and most of the other 14 directors. And the support was there again last Saturday, even with Twickenham on the telly.
Over 300 here today when there was the counter-attraction of the International on television, and when it was a rather nasty day.
Oh yes, we've got 400-500 solid supporters, and if we were playing in Newport, it would be double that at least.
I think it's been a magnificent effort. Our supporters are first class. First of all, they travel at least 85 miles, or around journey 170 miles every other week to support us. They've never caused an ounce of trouble. They never stop cheering the players on. They're absolutely first class, and all the players are very grateful for their efforts.
You feel very much at home now. Obviously, we want to get back into Newport, but until that happens, can't think of a better place to be.
A lot of family comes here, and it's a nice place for everybody to come, so we enjoy it. It's good. I like coming.
Were you a Newport supporter before they moved over here?
Yeah, so I've been since I was about 8 or 9, so when they set up the new football club, and, it's just natural to join, really.
What about David Hando and the rest of the directors? What do you feel about them?
They're doing a marvellous job. They pulled it up by its bootstraps. I mean, they're directors, but mostly they're ordinary supporters. And they're not taking a penny out of the club.
There was a credibility problem at first, but I think we overcame that very quickly when we proved that people were prepared to come here and were prepared to follow us so long as we were producing quality football. Our main problems have really been financial. People have put up with long travelling because they think it's worthwhile. But our resources are diminishing all the time, and we must get back to Newport as soon as we can.
How did you go about things, building and getting this side put together?
Well, it was a difficult process. Graham Rogers and myself sat down with a blank sheet of paper one day and decided we needed 15 or 16 players to form a squad. Probably about 1,000 phone calls later, a few meetings, we managed to get a squad together. It wasn't easy because really we were selling an idea rather than a football club. At that stage we didn't have a ground, didn't have a league to play in, and we were an unknown quantity. So it was very good of the players to take the chance, the risk of leaving well-established clubs to come and join us.
Now in the Premier Division of the Federated Homes League, Newport were 4 points behind the top team, Bicester Town, with 4 games in hand when they entertained Ruislip Park last Saturday. The entertainment was strictly for Newport's travelling fans. Manager John Relish was also delighted with a record 8-0 victory, which started with an own goal.
Robert Painter actually knocked a very good cross in, and as a defender I know myself that the lad had no option but to try and clear the ball. Unfortunately, he only succeeded in finding his own net.
But funnily enough, it didn't seem to perk you up all that much. It was a long time, in fact, before Jarvis got the first goal of his hat-trick.
That's right. I thought we were very sloppy in the first half, and that sort of mirrored in our first 30 minutes performance. We gave the ball away, and we were going through the motions a little bit, and it needed a G-up at times from players on the field. We got the second goal with David Jarvis. It was a neat 1-2 with Dean Herity, and I think he beat the keeper as the keeper advanced towards him, just poked it past him. That settled us down, and after that, we were never in danger at all.
Well, whatever you said to them at half-time seemed to work the oracle, because you got another goal, within 2 minutes of the second half starting. That was Jarvis again.
Yes, David Jarvis. I think Mike Pratt knocked the ball into Chris Lillygreen, who laid it off, and it was a very good strike, actually, into the corner of the net, and that set the standard for our second half, because I thought we played quite well second half.
Indeed, and made it 4 with Dean Herity. This is a lively player.
Dean Herity, he's a very good player, and we're very pleased to have got his services. He's been playing in America, actually, on a sports scholarship. He came back to Newport, and we won the race for his signature, and we're very pleased. He's an outstanding player at our level, composed and intelligent, and I know all the players like playing with Dean.
And a smart substitution, bringing little Brian Priest on with, I thought, the most spectacular goal of the game.
I won't live that down. He's been giving me quite a bit of stick because he's been on the bench. We wanted to give everyone a run out today. He responded with a terrific goal, which is quality at any level. And I'm glad for Brian because he's deserved that.
And Malander knocking in the 6th goal. That was the result of a lot of pressure down the left-hand side. It had to come, didn't it?
Yes, it did. It was inevitable, and Paul was pushing forward more and more, and he just managed the end of thing, and I think that's his second headed goal this season, I think it is.
Yeah. And then Jarvis getting his hat-trick. I think just after he got his hat-trick for you, you were thinking in terms of taking him off and reducing yourself, because you'd used your 2 substitutes. He seemed to have picked up a knock of some kind.
Yes, he had a slight knock. We wanted him off the field because we got Wednesday's game in mind. This game was already won. Unfortunately, you couldn't drag him off at that stage with 2 goals, and he was determined that if he could stay on, he would. And he met a cross on the far post, and he got his hat-trick.
And then your man wrapped it up with the 8th goal, Precy again.
Yes, Brian, I think one of our players let the ball run. It just dropped for Brian. He stuck it away in the corner of the net. Yeah, that's right.
What then do you see as your goal now here in this Federated Homes?
I see as our goal is we're in the cup competition in the semi-final. It'd be nice if we could get to the final, possibly win a little bit of silver in our first season, and hopefully be in a position to challenge for the top spot at come May.
Do you need that top spot to get into the Visa Homes, John?
Technically, we need to be in the top 3 to apply, but I think it'd be nice and it'd be more convincing application from us if we were in the top spot.
What sort of expectations do you have of ever getting back into Newport again, Dave?
Well, we are hopeful that we can convince Newport Borough Council that the club is an asset to the town and not a liability. They've agreed to meet with us, and we hope that perhaps at the end of next week or the week after, we will sit down and talk with the councillors and try to convince them of 2 things. Firstly, that we can afford to run Somerton Park without being a drain on the council and on the ratepayers. We don't need any subsidy. All we want is the chance to get in there and prove ourselves. But that would only be a short-term process because we know that the Borough Council want to realise their asset at Somerton Park. And in any case, for the 1990s, it's not really a suitable football stadium. So we've then got to convince the council that we can raise the £700,000 plus needed to develop a new stadium in the town. And that's the twin approach that we will make.
Hopefully I can finish the walk by 9 o'clock. Finish home, for a quick bath, quick swill, what have you, and then off to meet the coach then. For I think it's a trip of hour and 3/4 up to Morton.
But aren't the players beginning to feel it? Because it's, as you say, an hour and 3/4 in the coach, then you have to play, then you have to come back. Must be quite tiring.
Well, you know, that's right. I mean, it's a long day out, and some days you're hoping for an away game where you're not travelling so far. But everyone is coping with it, but I think towards the end of the season there we are getting a little bit tired with it.
Yesterday, Chris took the feet which pound the postal beat to Stroud for the Battle of the Nomads. Newport's opponents, third-place Sharpness, have sold their 7-side ground for redevelopment. So, like Newport, are depending on the goodwill of a Gloucestershire club. In front of about 500 of their loyal supporters, it was a battle Newport won well. Making the most of a strong win, they took the lead after a quarter of an hour when Dave Jarvis neatly headed home Paul Mallander's free kick. Goal number 17 for another Newport County old boy. On the half-hour, Mike Pratt's header from a corner was handled in the box, and it was Chris Lillygreen who stepped up to put the Exiles 2 up. Fullback Gary Spink, another one of the famous 5, was keen to get forward whenever he could. This fine run should have led to goal number 3, but the other fullback, Rob Painter, showed just why he is the other fullback. But Gary Spink wasn't to be denied a share in the glory. Just before half-time, he burst through again, and there was Chris Lillygreen to head his second and Newport's third. So a deserved 3-0 lead at the interval. The Exiles were up against it at the beginning of the second half. Luckily, though, Tony Bird was in fine form. Then the wind died down, and after just 10 minutes, Newport went further ahead. Norman Parcell was the architect, and it was Lillygreen whose cross provided the ball on a plate for Jarvis. There was some consolation for the home fans when Gareth Howell scored for Sharpness a quarter of an hour from the end. But it was a good win for a good Newport squad.
It's a good squad of local players as well, and I think that's important because we pride ourselves on being a club in the community of Newport, and of the 15 and 16-man squad, I think 14 are Newport boys. So that's an important aspect, I think, and I think our supporters are grateful for the fact that a lot of local lads are given the opportunity of playing.
After a suspicious start, Newport's relations with the local council have begun to improve. The club have asked to return to Somerton Park, home of the old Newport County, on a temporary basis until a new ground is built as part of a multi-sport stadium half a mile away at Spitty Park.
We put up as good a case as we could, and it's up to the councillors now to decide whether we've convinced them. But the point that we really must make is that it would be no good going ahead with the multi-sport stadium, expecting us to be able to finance the stand and the clubhouse if we're kept in exile, because we won't be able to raise the sort of money that we could do if we were playing in the town.
But surely your case must be strengthened by your performances on the pitch.
Well, I think people accept that we are worthy representatives of the name of Newport.
Come on the pod!
say anything. First of all, thanks to you guys. You're all thanking me. When you think about it, players win matches, not managers. Yeah. These lads have been absolute. Credit to the town. Yes. Let's go back to the report. The better for all concerned. Listen, remember that tomorrow. Thanks for everything you've done, because the lads will tell you you've been absolutely first class. And all I say to you is, the drinks trouble.
The demise of Newport County, the club which rose from its ashes, Newport AFC, found itself without a ground in the town because of its predecessor's problems at Somerton Park. But after a season in exile at Morton in Marsh in the Cotswolds, the club's finally set to return to Gwent.
We've done this in an effort to assist the AFC. They find it very difficult at the moment to play all their home games away from home, and as in response to their request, obviously.
It's not going to be immediate, but we're very keen to get there. Our fans deserve it. They've been very loyal in travelling all over the country, and it's cost them a lot of money. So we obviously want to get to Somerton, which we've been asking for 14 months.
And it'll be good to see football in Newport again, presumably?
Well, yes, I think the people of Newport will flock to see us.
From the ashes of Newport County has risen the phoenix known as Newport AFC, who spent the whole of last season playing their home matches 85 miles away in Gloucestershire. Tonight, they're back in their hometown for a very special pre-season friendly. Having kissed and made up with the local council, they're back at Somerton Park. It's amazing what a lick of paint and lots of elbow grease can do. Everything is just about ready for the big day, and everyone seems happy.
Well, I think it's a very splendid ground. I hope it continues to do them credit. This is an ex-league ground and obviously was pretty well up to scratch, I'm sure, before it unfortunately stopped. A lot of our other grounds are clubs that are coming up and are having to do their improvements themselves, and so obviously this has a lot going for it compared with some of the grounds.
It's a very nostalgic moment for me, really. I've spent 14 good years at Somerton Park, playing for Newport County. I felt bad when the old club folded. I felt a little bit bitter about the way things turned out. And I felt it was a shame that a town the size of Newport didn't have a football team to represent it. So it's a very proud moment for me today. And I'm looking forward to it immensely, and to be back to the place where we should have been in the first place.
The first match back at Somerton Park is not just another pre-season friendly before the Beezer Homes League programme begins on Saturday. It's a way of saying thank you to Morton Town, who kept Newport AFC in business during their exile.
Yes, we shared their ground for a whole season. They would have liked us to have stayed, I'm sure. But here we're home now, and they're our first guests back here. And I think, as you know, we are renaming one of the lounges, the Morton Lounge, in their honour. And Bill Eldridge, their secretary, will declare it open this evening.
What does it mean to you personally to be back here? Because you've been involved with this fight to keep football alive in Newport from the off.
Well, we're all in it together. We're a fans club, and we work as a team, both on and off the field. There were 200 people here the first weekend, clearing up the debris and then starting the painting and the reconstruction. Tremendous amount of work has gone in here, and everyone, I think, will be very proud tonight.
What about your nickname? You're known as the Exiles, but you're no longer in Exiles.
Well,
are you going to change it?
That's part of the history of the club. We'll always be the Exiles.
Soccer back at Somerton Park. Money changing hands, turnstiles clicking, fans filing in. 2,271 of them. Newport AFC was back home, but pity nobody told visitors Redditch about the party. They swapped their role as walk-on extras for the star part, as Newport somehow forgot the style and skill that's brought them so much success in so short an existence. There was the odd moment to remind the faithful why they'd travelled 150 miles for home games last season, but for once, game was secondary to occasion.
Thoroughly enjoying it. It's great to see such a nice crowd here too.
Fabulous. It couldn't be better. It's what I wanted and hoped for all last season, and it was achieved after a tremendous effort of all the supporters and everybody.
Nice not to have to travel 75 miles for a home game as well, isn't it?
Yeah. Pockets not so deep though.
Back on the field, the problem seemed to be big night nerves. Inexperienced players catapulted into the public eye. None more so than goalkeeper Tony Bird, who made the sort of mistake he thought he'd left behind at junior school for Mick Perry's goal. Newport's response was to huff and to puff, but threaten only occasionally, such as when substitute Steve Rowbury forced Dennis Burke to remember he wasn't there just to take back passes and goal kicks. He saved again from Rowbury just before the end, but for Newport, the harsh realities of higher grade football.
What is worrying a little bit is that this is the second time we've performed in front of a couple of thousand people and not played well, and that worries me a little bit.
What have you said to the players?
Really, what I've said is that they're going to have to get used to it, because this club's going places, and if they want to be part of it, they're going to have to be used to playing in front of bigger crowds than they've experienced before. And if they can't handle the situation, well, you know, at the end of the day, we'll have to get players in who can.
A competitive game back here at Somerton Park. Did you think this day would come?
Well, this is what we've worked for. I mean, the very first time we met, we mapped our progress into the league and back to Somerton, and it took a time to persuade the council. But it was interesting that one of our council supporters actually won a £50 prize today, so there's an omen there.
Newport haven't made the best of homecomings to Somerton Park, 4 defeats in 4 league games. But their determination to reach the third round of the Welsh Cup was evident from the kick-off. This goal by Kenny Stroud in the 13th minute gave them the lead in his first competitive game for 3 years. But Pembroke had a chance to equalise 5 minutes later. Neil Jones's run setting up Newport old boy Steve Morgan, who really should have done better. It was Stroud, who's had Football League experience with Swindon and Bristol City, who started and finished the move which led to Newport's second goal 5 minutes later. His pass was just reached by Rob Painter, and when the ball was only half cleared, Norman Parcell touched it back for Stroud. How's that for a swiftly struck shot? Just before half-time, Chris Lillygreen and Dave Jarvis linked up well. Jarvis will be disappointed, though, not to have scored, slightly off balance as he shot. The second half followed much the same pattern, Newport pressing for more goals, and Pembroke only making the occasional sortie out of their own half. Back to the goalkeeper here, a familiar tactic for them. Richard Davis, the man in plenty of space here, moving forward from fullback. Richard Jones holding the ball up well, but substitute Jeremy Harris letting the side down with his finish. Newport were playing 3 central defenders with their fullbacks pushing up. Parcell being set free by Dean Richards here, and Mark Price almost making it 3-0. The final goal arrived 4 minutes from time. Richards playing a nice 1-2 with Stroud before releasing Lillygreen, and with the Pembroke defence suddenly parting like the Red Sea, Lillygreen strode through to seal the victory.
Fe ath Casnewydd ar y blaen wedi 7 munud ar 20. Yr ergyd hon o bell gan Andrew Ellis yn twyllo'r golwr. 2 funud yn ddiweddarach, symudiad llawer iawn gwell Paul Sanderson. Ellis unwaith eto. Ac yna'r cefnwr de Marcus Brain yn mynd ar ymosod a chreu'r cyfle I Phil Green. Dwi ddim. Cic gornel gan Phil Williams, cyffyrddiad, a Phil Green yn gyda neb. Yn sgorio'n hawdd. Y bedwaredd, croesed gobeithiol gan Sanderson, a Mark Price yn hedfan drwy'r awyr I guro'r amddiffyn. Ar bumed, 20 munud cyn y diwedd, Wayne Hewitt yn croesi'r bêl. A Paul Sanderson yn codi uwch na phawb. Perfformiad arbennig, Casnewydd 5, Racing Club Warwick, dim.
From Bridgend, who forced the early chances. Tony Phillips, Peter Mason. The Advocates Club restricted Newport to chances from set pieces, Phil Green flashing a header wide from one such free kick. So it came as a little bit of a surprise when Newport opened the scoring after just 21 minutes. The cross coming in, Phil Green providing the flick on, and Sanderson the clinical finish from close range. As the half wore on, so Newport improved. Phil Green could have added a second. He was put clear through by a long clearance, but George Brown's persistence put him off the chance. 1-0 it was at half-time. The second half followed the same vein as the first, with Bridgend opening well, and Peter Mason had to save well with his legs from Mark Farmer. Price completing the clearance. And the underdogs continued to battle, but a mistake by Andy Dillon 15 minutes from time let in Price for number 2, and Newport took real control. And to add insult to injury for Bridgend, Price followed up with a second just 6 minutes later. Sanderson on the end of the through ball, Dillon with the half save, Price following up, 3-0 the final score, AFC Newport 3, Bridgend 0.
Cardiff City makes from the team that beat Doncaster in the 4th Division on Saturday. Mark Jones has recovered from a calf injury and returns to defence, and Roger Hansbury replaces Gavin Ward in goal, Ward having taken a knock during Saturday's match. And 5 other first-team members are also still out with injury, so 17-year-old Robin Seamark starts only his 3rd game for the club. Newport are much closer to full strength and are unchanged from Saturday when a late goal from the much-travelled Phil Green, his 13th of the season, gave them a 3-2 Beezer Homes League win at Stourbridge. Green's strike partner, Paul Sanderson, is also very well known in these parts. He's a former Cardiff City player. Referee John Deakin from the Vale of Glamorgan took charge of the Albright Bitter Welsh Cup final last year. And all 3 match officials will need to be on their mettle tonight because there's an experimental offside law in operation in the competition this season. A player can't be offside if the ball is played to him from within his own half. The idea is to reduce offsides and cut out congestion in midfield, or at least that's the theory. FIFA are monitoring the rule and seeing how it works. And here perhaps the first opportunity for Newport. Griffiths finds Sanderson, gets it in towards Green. And they have to watch Phil Green very closely indeed, because Green has scored goals virtually everywhere he's gone. And Wayne Hewitt certainly getting involved there inside his own half on the left side of the midfield, but the ball will break for Dale, and Mason was ever so sharp there. This is what he's good at, Carl Dale. First time effort on goal, but Mason did well. Mark Jones straight on to the head of Prue. Roger Gibbons challenging, but Griffiths does well. Although Searle will pick this one up. Lewis, and that got stuck in the water, and Hansbury needed to be very alert there, and was. The goalkeeper did well. That wasn't well advised from Alan Lewis. This is Carl Dale in on goal. It could hold up and cause problems for the goalkeeper. Can Dale turn? No, he can't. Great covering work there by Marcus Gray. That'll break for Blake. Cohen Griffith turns it on to Dale. Dale against Prue, and again the Newport defender does ever so well, but Dale still has it. Blake is in there, and so too is Chris Pike. And Chris Pike opens the scoring in the 35th minute, and Cardiff City have made the breakthrough thanks to Chris Pike scoring his 50th goal for Cardiff City in his career here at Ninian Park. So double celebrations for Chris Pike. Missed the ball. Hewitt. Works the cross in towards Green. It could break there for Price, but he lifted his head, and it was always rising over the crossbar, but Mark Price must have fancied his chances there as the ball broke to him. Newport get it away again. They've had the better of the last couple of minutes, Newport, having conceded that goal to Chris Pike. As the rain eases off just a little bit here at Ninian Park. And Roger Hansbury comes sprinting out. He was always favourite there. And that really was a good long clearance. No offside here, of course, because of the new rule, and the Newport defenders aware of it, and they were lying deep. Searle gets a second bite. That's better. Pike again. This is Lilligreen. Sanderson could well take advantage here. Can he outstrip Perry? He has Green in the middle. Sanderson forced to hold it up. Now it's in towards Green. That's a good turn, and that was a fine covering tackle. So the corner swung in towards Sanderson. That's a fine header. It hit the bar. It hit the bar, and there was Chris Lilligreen coming in at the near post, unable to take advantage of the loose ball. That really was a fine header by Sanderson as the half-time whistle blows. Newport coming ever so close to the equaliser. Sanderson with a great leap. Hansbury may well have just got a touch on that. It fell for Lilligreen, and maybe the conditions had a part to play there. Cardiff City have had plenty of troubles with non-league opposition in recent years in the Albright Bitter Welsh Cup. Tonight no exception, but they do lead 1-0 at half-time thanks to Chris Pike. 1-0 to Cardiff was in fact the score when these two teams met previously in the Albright Bitter competition 2 years ago. Seamark with a corner. Blake lets it go, and the header comes in from Cohen Griffith. In the 68th minute, Cardiff City score their second goal, and it really was a splendid finish by Cohen Griffith, his first of the season. Newport then, again coming forward. They need to go quickly. 2 down. Hewitt finds Jarvis, his first touch. Across towards Green, and that really tested Roger Hansbury. A very sharp save indeed. The former Merthyr player back with Newport, and that really was a fine volley. Ashley Griffiths in towards Green, a snap header. He really has been in the right position so many times tonight, Phil Green. Probably deserves a goal for his efforts. Gibbons with the throw. Dale with a nudge. And here's Dale in for goal number 3. Carl Dale. 5 minutes from time. A very precise finish indeed. Drilled that one in after Cohen Griffith had the first opportunity. It was Dale who made no mistake. His 7th goal of the season forward. And again Williams, and that could have been a consolation there for Newport. Phil Williams trying his luck from all of 30 yards. It would have been nice if that had gone in. Well, Cardiff City have had a few hiccups against non-league opposition in the Albright Bitter Welsh Cup in recent years with defeats by Kidderminster and Merthyr, but tonight, no mistake, a goal in the first half from Chris Pike, and then in the second half, the victory wrapped up by Cohen Griffith and then Carl Dale.
When the Football Association of Wales Secretary Alan Evans announced the appeal board's decision this afternoon, it was bad news for 7 of the irate 8. Only Merthyr Tydfil would be allowed to stay in English football. Barry, Newport, Bangor, Carnarvon, Colwyn Bay, Rhyl and Newtown must play in Wales, whether in the new League of Wales or not. And it's not all good news for Merthyr. They must reach the Football League within 5 years or face a similar fate. The FAW hopes today's decision brings an end to the row which has split Welsh soccer.
That's a matter for the clubs, of course. I do not believe that they have any further recourse to legal action, because I think our tribunal has been shown to be independent. But we would much rather now they came together with us and talked about how we can make the League of Wales a really worthwhile venture.
But the rebel non-league clubs have vowed to carry on the fight. Even Merthyr chairman John Reddy is unhappy with the decision.
I heard the other 7 cases. They were strong and good cases. Merthyr was no different to them. And if Merthyr's been allowed through, then, you know, why shouldn't the other 7 be allowed through?
We thought we were a special case, but then we thought that all of the clubs had an excellent case. And we cannot see that there is any respectable distinction, valid distinction, between Merthyr and the rest of the clubs. But then, I mean, I speak as a simple football fan, not a QC.
Personally, I can't see Carnarvon going into this league, which they have from the beginning tried to force us into. I suppose they call this democracy. It's a hell of a funny democracy as far as I'm concerned.
The 8 now talk of legal action, moving to England, or even closing their clubs down. The bitterness, it seems, isn't over yet.
Were on their best behaviour after what the club called the midweek pitch intrusion, and they immediately had something to cheer about when Lady Luck at last smiled on the exiles. The tackle on Darren Peretta, a little late, some referees might not have given it though, but good fortune was wasted by bad technique from Mark Price. His penalty lacked conviction, and Andy Crandage saved easily, Dudley comfortably clearing their lines. Newport continued to press forward, Doug John on a run, and eventually Peretta with the shot. Again, the Dudley keeper on hand to save well. It seemed only a matter of time before the exiles went ahead. John, this time down the left, working a nice 1-2, and his shot finally being cleared off the line by Stuart Edwards. It was only a temporary respite from the resultant corner. Paul Towler broke well down the left again before setting up Price, who gleefully and gratefully made amends for his penalty miss. So 1-0 to Newport 2 minutes before half-time. The crowd was still settling back into their seats for the second half when Price made it 2-0. And from then on, it was a question of how many. Another penalty looked on when Paul Sanderson fell in the box. The referee waved play on, and the alleged culprit, Gary Nettleford, taken to hospital for an X-ray on his neck. Midway through the half, Darren Peretta crowned an excellent display with the goal of the game. A beautifully struck shot. 3-0 to Newport. And although Dudley grabbed a late consolation goal through Alan Edwards, without a win for 8 matches, this was just what the doctor ordered. Newport 3, Dudley 1.
To ashes. Members of the club were coming back from an away match when they saw the flames lighting up the sky around the ground at Somerton Park. At first they thought the main stand was on fire.
I thought, oh no, I hope it's not the main stand, because that would make everything sort of obsolete, because that's what we run everything from, the main stand. But we was lucky really, it's this side that haven't been used for a few seasons.
The cause of the fire is still under investigation. Earlier in the evening, there was a break-in at disused offices in the ground, which suggests the fire could have been started deliberately.
At this stage, we have a fire investigation team carrying out initial investigation. I think it's sufficient that we could say the fire is of a doubtful nature. There has been signs of forced access at the rear by persons unknown.
Next season, they'll be in exile too. While Newport carry on their bid for league status at Gloucester, Barry will play at Worcester. When they meet again for the South Wales derby, it'll be played somewhere east of Offers Dyke.
We're very sad, but we're determined that we're not going to go under. We were formed in order to return league football to Newport, and we'll do so some way or another.
To decide that a team like Barry and a team like our friends Newport have to go to play in England is very shameful and sad for Welsh football.
The result, 1-0 to Newport, something for the fans to savour as they head off to exile once again.
The weeds gradually invading the terraces of Somerton Park have grown from the seeds of one of football's most bizarre controversies. The ground, still in serviceable condition, is home to Newport AFC, or at least it would be if the Welsh FA hadn't banned them from playing anywhere in Wales. The club, who rose from the ashes of the defunct Newport County, are one of 4 senior non-league sides being forced to play across the border in England because they refused to leave the English leagues they play in to join the new Conica League of Wales. For their fans, it means a 50-mile coach journey to Gloucester to watch home games.
I think it's absurd, absolutely without logic, that ourselves and 3 other major non-league clubs in Wales are forced to go over to England to play, just because we wouldn't leave the leagues that we were already in before their proposals for the League of Wales.
The League of Wales, inhabited by such household footballing names as Haverfordwest and Abergavenny Thursdays, was set up by the Welsh FA to put it on a par with its counterparts in England, Scotland and Ireland. The winners will play, incongruous though it may seem, in the European Cup against the likes of Inter Milan. To achieve that prize, the Welsh FA felt it had to press-gang all clubs in Wales outside the Football League into joining it.
If we'd allowed their continued participation in English competitions, if we'd allowed them to continue to participate in those competitions and play in Wales, that could have endangered the chances of our European recognition.
The carrot of the European Cup has earned the Welsh FA an unlikely ally in Cardiff City, here in red, losing in this season's Cup Winners' Cup. To the outrage of the fans, the club chairman is considering taking them out of the Barclays League and into the Welsh League, alongside the likes of Abergavenny's Thursdays.
What these fans want is to see a winning team winning a worthwhile goal, and a worthwhile goal is playing in Europe. And if you've got to beat Abergavenny Thursday 10-0 to get to Europe, that's the goal, and the fans will come and support that.
But back in Newport, where they've even been prevented from playing a testimonial match for the family of a player killed in a car crash, they remain dedicated to climbing back up the English football pyramid.
We were reformed to attempt to get league football back into Newport. That was the express intention of everyone connected with this club, and it would mean actually throwing that ambition out the window, because once we joined the League of Wales, we'd be out of the English pyramid.
So, for the foreseeable future, Newport's Welsh Dragon will have to fly over the English city of Gloucester, where on Saturday the team lost 4-1 to Sutton in the English FA Cup. As the old euphemism runs, they're now free to concentrate on the league, but emphatically not the League of Wales.
In a corner of England, there's a patch that is forever Wales. Well, for as long as the football season lasts, that is. Gloucester City, for the moment, is Newport AFC. And those perennial exiles of Welsh soccer are home, or home and away might be a better way of putting it, playing Barry in a local Easter Welsh derby 100 miles away from where such local Easter Welsh derbies were played in days gone by. But such is the fate of the exile.
It's a ludicrous exile, we've always said so, and the sooner it ends, the better. Really out of our hands. I mean, we'll meet anyone, talk anywhere, but we obviously want to maintain our ambition of, once again, Newport playing in the Football League. Newport being the largest town in England and Wales, apart from Milton Keynes, which doesn't have a Football League side. We think it could sustain it. The only way is playing in the pyramid, and that's why we're here.
Most hard hit, of course, the 500 fans who have to make the trek across the border week in, week out. Quite why, they know not.
Because I'm bloody mad, I reckon.
All we want to do is go home. Is it too much to ask to play football where we belong?
It's a fiasco, isn't it, really? A farce.
Do you think Barry can go on doing this indefinitely if they're not allowed to back home?
I don't know. The thing is, it's not a Welsh club really anymore, is it? It's more English.
Far away from their roots the players may be, but there's no lack of intensity, even if there is a lack of goals, which suits neither Newport nor Barry as they look to climb a step higher to the promised land of the Football League. They want to take those steps back in Wales, but that's not up to them. The Football Association of Wales must decide when and if their exile can end. But given that the Conica League of Wales is up, running and established, they hope their return might be sooner rather than later.
We sincerely hope that the league will achieve its entry of 2 teams into Europe, and then perhaps the league might feel a bit more relaxed about us and enable us to come back to Wales.
I've been coming here since I was 11, and it might be a tip for a lot of people, but I mean, it was my kind of tip.
And last night, it was 3,000 people's kind of tip as Somerton Park saw its last match. 3,000 who saw the last and one who'd seen the first two. Jimmy Jenkins, born with the century, and there in 1912 for Newport County against Mid-Rhondda. Old players came back, old managers, old trainers, old fans. To wallow in nostalgia, hear the cheers again, relive times now past.
It seems that when the county disappeared, at least Somerton Park was still here. But with Somerton Park disappearing, that's the final chapter of senior football in the short term. Hopefully Newport AFC can resurrect that in the future.
It was always a happy family club. We knew we didn't have the sort of finances to compete with the best of the people. We had a good team spirit, and we had some good individual players who came through the club, the likes of John Aldridge and Tommy Tynan. They held it together, and it was always nice to come to work here.
It wasn't work last night, and even the cloud had a silver lining as the players of Newport's past took on the players of Newport's exiled present. It came in renewed hope for the future.
This ground has served football for 80 years, and it's sad. But on the other hand, linked with the closing of the ground, there is the building of the new stadium. And the commitment of the Borough Council is a tremendous advance. And with that and with the support that we've obviously got here, all we need is the cooperation of the Football Association of Wales, and we can put Newport back on the football map again.
But for Somerton Park, 81 years old, there's no reprieve. As the sun fades, so do the memories of goals and games gone by. The gates close. The next time they open, it'll be for the bulldozers.
It's ironic, really, because I know, as a groundsman here, I work for a housing association. I'm told tonight that a housing association has a bid for the ground to build on. So, quite ironic. I might come back later on in a few years' time and tend the gardens at Somerton Park. You never know. Don't build on it. Keep it as a sports stadium, even if it's just a recreation park. Somerton Park will always be Somerton Park, no matter what.
This is it, the King Hotel, near Newport County's old home, Somerton Park.
We have to have somewhere for our board meetings. We have to have somewhere for our supporters to come on a regular basis. And it would be nice, to have a pub in Newport. So we decided to go in for the venture and see if we could do something with the pub.
And presumably make some money out of it too.
Yes, more important, make some money. Yeah.
We have our problems, and it's no good sitting and moping and moaning about the problems. You've got to go out and do something. And when the opportunity of the King arose, we thought we'd give it a try. It'll give us a meeting place, it'll give us a function room, but it'll be somewhere where our supporters can gather. And it will, we hope, enable us to generate income to help secure the future of the club.
The part of Gloucester that for the past 2 years has stood in for Gwent, Gloucester Football Club, home of Newport AFC, one of 3 Welsh clubs in exile. But today, in their battle with the Football Association of Wales, the gloves came off. The clubs fielded a full first 11 to announce they were going to serve a writ on the FAW solicitors, claiming restraint of trade. They reckon playing in exile in England has cost them £350,000. This summer, they'll seek a High Court injunction, allowing them to return home to play in Wales.
We've exhausted all the other possibilities. We've tried negotiating with the FAW. We've approached UEFA. We've been in contact with the English FA. And frankly, there is now no alternative. The situation for the clubs has become crucial, and we have to do this.
At the moment, Caernarfon face a round trip of 230 miles to play at home in Manchester. Colwyn Bay travel to Ellesmere Port and Newport to Gloucester. Each of the clubs hopes to contribute £20,000 towards a fighting fund of £60,000 to cover the legal costs.
The money is coming in £5 notes from enraged pensioners. It's coming from youngsters collecting at schools. It's coming from an exile who ran in the London Marathon and raised £348. It's coming 6,000 pesetas given to us by a returning holiday maker. It's growing steadily, although we've got a little way to go yet.
And if they're successful, they'll look for more than simply a return home.
During the past 2 seasons, we spent a great deal of money in playing in exile, and we certainly hope to gain some compensation for that.
No one was available for comment at the Football Association of Wales today, though in the past they've claimed to allow the return of the exiles would be to damage the Konica League in the eyes of European football's governing body, UEFA. This assumption will now be challenged in the courts of law.
But after today's court ruling, they'll be allowed to return to their home grounds.
The decision may have important implications for soccer in Wales, and we'll be hearing more about those soon. But first, Peter Solomons has been seeing the day's developments.
There was jubilation as representatives of the 3 clubs left the High Court this morning. They'd regained the right to play their matches in Wales and won a ruling that the decision to ban them had represented an unfair restraint of trade.
We're absolutely delighted, particularly for our supporters who followed us so loyally at great personal cost. They will now have the opportunity of watching us at home, and Carnarvon and Colwyn Bay as well.
We don't take anything for granted, that we've been given permission to play next season at our home grounds.
This afternoon, the Football Association of Wales has been meeting to discuss its response to today's ruling. They're concerned that European football's governing body, UEFA, may look at the number of Welsh clubs still playing in England and consider possible sanctions.
And they turned out in force to cheer on their team, and I think they'll keep coming.
I reckon it's great, brilliant. It's good for the town, good for everyone.
It shows at the Welsh FA talking a load of nonsense, and it's good to see them back where they belong.
I mean, look at the people have spoken. I think the people of Newport have spoken tonight.
So what are the future for Newport County? As this tape was being edited in August 2001, there was high optimism among supporters that conference football could be achieved. The playing squad is the strongest since the club was reformed, and a £750,000 upgrade to the stadium to bring it up to conference standard was about to start. So who knows, perhaps in a few years Newport County will achieve Football League status once again.
Run lads, shoot lads, give your heart and soul. Run lads, shoot lads, give us all a goal. Run lads, shoot lads, you can do it yet. Come on Newport County, oh, bang it in the net. Come on the county, you're going strong. Come on the county, you can't go wrong. So keep on trying and don't look back. Come on the county, attack, attack. Run lads, shoot lads, give your heart and soul. Run lads, shoot lads, give us all a go. Run lads, shoot lads, you can do it yet. Come on Newport County, oh, bang it in the net. Run lads, shoot lads, give your heart and soul. Run lads, shoot lads, give us all a go. Run lads, shoot lads, you can do it yet. Come on Newport County, oh, bang it in the net. The game is ending, you've almost won. We'll end this song just as we begun. The final chorus will now begin. So all together, let's all join in. Run lads, shoot lads, give your heart and soul. Run lads, shoot lads, give us all a go. Run lads, shoot lads, you can do it yet. Come on Newport County, oh.